Hello and welcome to Big Dash Knows. Big Dash knows what? New York Giants football. Let's go. Episode 3. You see the thumbnail. Episode 3 might have been the best episode so far. I thought episode 2 was good. I liked episode 1, but episode 3, we got some resolution. We finally we finally found out what happened with the Saquon Barkley deal. We finally found out what went on with some of the free agency signings. We got to find out what some of the original thoughts for some of the guys that we brought in free agency. Fantastic episode. If you have not watched the episode, go ahead, turn this off, throw the episode on to come right back and we could talk about it a little bit. But listen, episode 3 did not disappoint. And then, depending on how you feel or how you were feeling at the time when this stuff was happening real time, again, this is the first week of free agency. So the Brian Burns stuff, all that. We got a chance to see exactly what the New York Giants were doing, what they were thinking. And I will say this, shout out to HBO, because guess what? We heard the rumors about, Brian Dable thought he had to fix when it came to, saying some things, being able to keep some things secret by, putting on music, playing music that, copyrighted and stuff like that. Shout out to HBO for clearing Beyonce's song, and shout out to Beyonce for accepting HBO's money and allowing us to use that song, on the episode. Let me put my light down a little bit, but it's fantastic. So let's get into the notes, because I do have the handy dandy notebook. So right off the bat, we get right into the Saquon Barkley situation. Right to Saquon Barkley, right to the conversation. No more guessing. Joe Shane had a call with Ed Berry, that's Saquon Barkley's agent, and it looked like they discussed a 3-year deal, 12 and a half, 25 guaranteed. And this was the early phone call, and pretty much Joe Shane is thinking that this can get it done. If he did that, this would get it done. John Mara comes in there. He's talking about how he's going to be scared to lose Barkley, this, that, and the third. And then a little bit later in the show, they pick up. And all of a sudden, he's asking Saquon Barkley's agent about the deal again. Yeah, is this going to be the deal? It sounds like, from what we were being told, no, the price went up. We saw that the price went up, and the New York Giants could not match it. They could not match it. Saquon Barkley becomes a Philadelphia Eagle eventually in the episode, and John Mara looks sick to his stomach. John Mara looked like somebody kicked his puppy when he walked out that office after finding out Saquon Barkley was going to the Eagles. And prior to him signing with the Eagles, the one thing that John Mara said is that I hope he doesn't want him to play for Philly. And guess what? That man went right down the turnpike to Philadelphia. Right down the turnpike to Philadelphia. And guess what? It is what it is. He's an op now. I've been saying it for a while now. Barkley is an op. It is what it is. All right, so next thing I want to talk about is some of these free agents. Let's get into these notes. Oh, another thing before I jump, getting back to Saquon Barkley. One thing that John Mara said during one of those conversations is that Saquon Barkley is our most popular player. Didn't just say he's our best player, best chance to win, our most popular player, and that's very telling. Obviously, you want to put butts in seats, and Saquon Barkley can do that. But when the team is trying to move on into something different, you're trying to hold on to this guy because he's your only star player. Guess what, guys? Got to step up. We got to find some more stars on the team, and we're probably going to lean on the defensive side first until some guys come into their own. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, now. So we saw a little bit later in the episode Brian Dable, Joe Shane having their one-on-ones. And Brian Dable said the emphasis was on inside players. He wanted to bolster the offensive line. And you saw it early in the episode, guys that they had targeted. They targeted John Runyon. They targeted Hunt from the Dolphins. They targeted Jermaine Illuminor. Like we saw that. Those were guys that were high on their list, and they ended up getting 2 out of those 3 guys. What got me was some of the deals. So the Jets were in it with John Runyon. We ended up having to beat their deal. Funny thing about Jermaine Illuminor, we offered him a 2-year deal, or he signed a 2-year deal. It looks like they wanted to negotiate a 3-year deal, but Jermaine Illuminor said no, he wants only a 2-year deal. Don't know what that's all about. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that's what it. But the thing about it also is when they talked about John Runyon and they talked about Jermaine Illuminor, Rossetti was in the room with all of the what do you call them, staff, the GM, the assistant GM, all that stuff, right? And he was saying when he was talking about Jermaine Illuminor, he's either going to be our starting right tackle or our starting right guard. That came straight out of the horse's mouth. Illuminor was supposed to be either our starting right tackle or our starting right guard. And even earlier, when they were talking about John Runyon, Joe Schoen himself said, okay, so now you have JMS, John Runyon, Andrew Thomas. So that tells me that they had plans for John Runyon to be on the left side. So when did all this change? And if you've been following me, watching me for a while now, especially recently, you know how I feel about that situation with Jermaine Illuminor playing left guard instead of being on that right side. And we knew it. We knew it. Jermaine Illuminor was supposed to be on that right side. Whether it was going to be right guard or right tackle, he should be on that right side. Runyon should be on that left side. Even that was the plan for these guys early on, and I would love to find out exactly what happened and how did Jermaine Illuminor ended up being on the left side. And for Rossetti to say he's either going to be our starting right tackle or starting right guard, that goes to show you how they feel about Mr. Evan Neal. But let's move on with that. So also, Brian Dable wanted to bring Tyrod Taylor back. Joe Schoen wanted to bring Tyrod Taylor back. John Mara wanted Tyrod Taylor back. Guess what? Tyrod Taylor didn't want to be back, and it just offered him a lot of money. So turned down whatever deal that the New York Giants offered to him, and it was what it was. And they did. They were pretty transparent. They talked about some of the guys that they offered deals to. They offered Hunter deal. They offered Runyon, Illuminor, Tyrod, Singletary. All these guys in this episode were offered deals. And again, out of those guys, we got Runyon, Illuminor, and we got Singletary. It is what it is. So let me tell you something. I wish when I was younger that I had the seed planted in my head that, you know what, you can work in the front office of a professional football team. Well, I should just say you could work in the office of the New York Giants. I wish that even crossed my mind as a kid growing up in New Jersey. I wish I would have thought about something like that, because I probably would have tried to take that path, but it is what it is. So let's see what else I got here. They did talk about, well, they didn't go into detail about the Xavier McKinney deal. They just kind of tossed that in there with the whole Saquon Barkley thing. You know, as soon as Saquon Barkley signs a deal, they turn around and Xavier McKinney's going too. And then they talked about basically how they could not afford Xavier McKinney. So they wanted Xavier McKinney back. They just couldn't afford it. And the Green Bay Packers just, gave him so much money, couldn't offer that you couldn't refuse, I guess. But couldn't beat that deal. Shout out to Xavier McKinney. I love Xavier McKinney. Roll Tide, all that. Happy that he's in Green Bay, and I wish him best of luck against every other team but the New York Giants. Shout out to him. Let's see what else I got in my notes. The Brian Burns deal. The Brian Burns deal was interesting to watch how it unfolded. The back and forth between Dan Morgan and Joe Schoen, and kind of like the cat and mouse game that they played. These guys known each other for a long time. They kind of played, well, Joe Schoen kind of played on the relationship, being good, and we plan on being GM for a long time. Let's be able to work together for a long time type of deal. You know how they do relationships. Build certain situations, and can get you deals that normally or most of the time you couldn't get. But they offered Brian Burns the deal, and then they called Carolina to see what they would need to get as far as compensation for Brandon Burns with that non-exclusive tag. I believe it's a non-exclusive tag, franchise tag. So, obviously they figured out what the picks were going to be, what we traded, and I believe we traded the second rounder, the fifth rounder, and then next year's fifth round, for Brian Burns, and then the extra pick that we got this year in the fifth round. But ultimately, they showed that the deal got done. Brian Burns is in the building, Singletary, Illuminor. Almost forgot the Drew Lock situation. Again, Drew Lock was not first on that list. Tyrod Taylor was first on their list. And I will say this, to me, the way they edited the video or the show, it seems like they kind of sold, and everybody was in on it. John Mara, Joe Shane was in on it, kind of selling Drew Lock, the dream that, guess what? Daniel Jones is hurt. Guys have come in here, left and gotten paid. You can do that too. And also, don't forget, until Daniel Jones is right, you're the guy. And listen, we heard the rumors about, Drew Lock saying that he would be in a competition for a starting spot, this, that, and the third. That was leaked by, I believe, the Seattle Seahawks GM when they lost him when he signed with the New York Giants. But it kind of seemed like they sold him a little bit of a dream. You know what I mean? And guess what? It's kind of a reality. Again, we're talking about March at this time. Daniel Jones making progress, but still not quite, didn't quite have the idea of when he was going to be ready. So it just made sense for that Drew Lock situation to happen. They did talk about Flacco and what he might be asking for. They also looked at Gardner Minshew. It looks like he was one of those guys too. Guess what? Man, if Gardner Minshew would have got here, that's a whole different conversation. That is a whole entire different conversation. Let's see what else I got on my notes. I think that's it, man. Fantastic episode altogether. Fantastic episode. Again, if you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch that and then come back and watch this video. Let me know how you guys feel about it. Everybody tuned in right now, let me know what you feel about it, man. I think this episode was very telling. It showed us a little bit more of the process. You got to be a fly on the wall. We were privy to some of those conversations. And again, I've never seen anything like this before. We've never had access like this before. And seeing it for the first time was fantastic. I'm loving this episode, my favorite episode so far, and I believe we have 2 episodes left. So that's going to be the video, the recap of episode 3, New York Giants, Hard Knocks, off season. I want to thank everybody for vibing with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And from one Giants fan to another, this is Big Dash Knows, Big Blue Nation. Let's go.